I'm William Shatner. I've done a lot of things in my career, but this takes the cake. This is so cool. You, Joseph, today, it's all about you. You won the internet. Congratulations. It's exciting. It makes me want to celebrate. Makes me want to get up out of this chair. Makes me want to sing. Makes me want to dance. Makes me want to shout. Kick my heels up. Throw my hands up. Toss my head back. No, really, people should be shouting your name in the street.
Come on now. Sing that name.
Sing that song.
Joseph,
Sing it out loud.
Joseph.
I want to celebrate. Put it up in lights.
The internet belongs to you.
See, no one else deserves to be celebrated like you because you are the best.
Hey, listen up, y'all. I'm going to shout out this young gun right here because he's trying to do his thing. Joseph Jaffe, not famous. Probably rightfully so. You know what I'm saying? I mean, I'm famous because, you know, he not famous. And he like, yo, let me call my famous friends and see if they'll shout me out and make me more famous, sir. Right? But so, you know, Joseph Jaffe, man, it's cool. You got your late night talk show popping off. That's what's dope. Streaming, been doing your thing, man. Started this in March of the 2020, which is, tough throughout the years, but booking great guests, man. Jamal Mashboard, James Rollins, steady building it, man. Keep it popping off, man. Keep building your brand, man. Believe in yourself. Keep going hard, all right? That's what it's all about. One of these days, this little acronym of yours, not famous, is not going to be true. People going to see you in the mall and be like, I know who you is. Them going to be your cousins saying it all incorrect like that. But you know what I'm saying? You know what you going to do. What you going to do? They family. All right, bro. I'll holler.
Am I being overconfident? Am I becoming complacent about complacency?
I think you are.
Oh, he's not the Messiah, he's just a very naughty boy.
Yeah, I've got big ears.
Brian doesn't want to see anyone else. Piss off!
That's the one, because you literally complete me, and we complete each other.
You've obviously encountered discrimination in your own life by virtue of being Australian.
Hey, Manuel Kemp was a real pissant who was very rarely stable.
I don't want to get too gushy, but I might just be saying you complete me, Dean. P&G now stands for Pritchard and Good.
Branding is not a bad blind date. Look at you! You are insane!
How did I do that?
You're
How
insane!
Did I do that?
You're insane!
I went for the Irish jig. I went with the Irish jig because it is Thursday, November 3rd, and I want to dance a jig of joy. A jig of joy, very alliterative, because TCAP is in the house. Todd Kaplan, the Chief Marketing Officer of Pepsi, restoring faith and hope and trust and optimism in the bastions of marketing. See, this is like a call to action. This is a call to arms. And we're ready for the fight. We're ready to take marketing into the future. So very appropriate. Do you feel energized? Do you feel like Braveheart, Who's with me? Who's with me? Calm down, Jaffe. Have another cup of coffee. I don't know if you noticed in the. I'm sure Todd noticed in the intro was a little bit of the cola wars. We had Coke, but more importantly, we had Pepsi leadership as well. Brad over there, wonderful, wonderful guest. It really energizes me when I have marketers on the show. Not just any marketer, but a marketer leading the way. And we'll talk about this right hot on the heels of ANA's Masters of Marketing. For those of you that are marketers, that have marketing in your veins, or for those of you that just, are interested in culture, in creativity, in collaboration, in innovation, in disruption, you will get it all inside. This is the J.C. Penney of business talk shows. And Bez is here. He said, hello at Joseph Jeff is not famous here. And here and accounted for. Looking forward to your conversation with Todd Kaplan. As am I, my friend, as am I. So for those of you that know, I am focused on a little collective, a little Web3 business of Web3 think tank meets conference, meets always on Mastermind. And, it's funny how in life we overcomplicate. We tend to pile everything into our babies, into our pet projects, including but not limited to the kitchen sink. In fact, I believe Elon Musk was seen recently escorting a kitchen sink into Twitter, or maybe out of Twitter. I'm not really sure, but I heard this amazing feedback from someone down at the conference, and he said, "Look, it's very simple. You're just going to get to interact with the best and the brightest minds in the business, and do it in a way where you roll up your sleeves, get your hands dirty, the learning by doing." And I loved that. I said, well, that's the new elevator pitch. The idea of learning about the business of Web3 with the best and the brightest minds. I say this only because Todd Kaplan is one of our Alpha Talk speakers. There will be 52 of them, 26 male, or those who identify as such, and 26 female. When we talk about diversity, equity, and inclusion and access, the new one is A, we need to make sure that we're walking our talk. I actually want to show you a little clip. I did a whole bunch of these. I will be sharing them on Instagram over the course of the days, weeks, and months ahead. I will also be releasing some of them to subscribers, experimenting with Instagram at only 99 cents a month. You can get little gems or, nuggets, or I don't know, poopy pellets, just like this one. Here's one from me. Walking to lunch at the Masters of Marketing, and Mark Pritchard, who's the global CMO of P&G, he was talking about diversity, and he was talking about representation, inclusivity, and specifically talking about washing hair amongst African American or Black consumers. That lather, rinse, repeat, which has always been used with respect to communications about washing, about washing your hair, etc., is not accurate. It's amongst Black consumers, and so that had to change. Not just representation in advertising, but also the messaging. And I actually realized that lather, rinse, repeat is actually the new same shit, different day, doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result. So these are words to live by. Lather, rinse, repeat. I even wrote that on a big board, which we'll talk about very, very soon with Todd. What's wrong with marketing? Come sound off on the wall. And so everyone went and wrote, and we'll talk about what people wrote and what they didn't. And I thought that would actually be a really good basis for the seated soliloquy before I bring on my guest. And the seated soliloquy today is exactly that. It's called What's Wrong with Marketing? Well, what's eating Gilbert Grape? What's eating Gilbert Marketing? And, I'm here today to tell you there's nothing wrong with marketing. There might be something wrong with marketers, though, present company, and I don't mean me, I mean Todd Kaplan excluded, because there are still too many marketers that haven't figured out that the brain has two sides, a left brain and a right brain. And when those two brains work together, magic happens when art and science works together. There are too many marketers right now that are on the fence, that are spectators, that are not showing courage and bravery and backbone and spine, leading the way. Not just talking about being prepared to fail, but actually failing and learning and sharing with other marketers as well. There is nothing wrong with marketing. Marketing exists as it has, as one of the only two functions in business, according to Peter Drucker, that matter. Innovation and marketing, and everything else is a cost. And yet, what do we and how do we regard marketing? As a cost, as an operating cost, as a cost center, not a profit center. And now, as we go into this global recession, we expect budgets to be frozen and budgets to be cut and hiring to be frozen and talent to be cut, when in actual fact, now is not the time to cut back on marketing. What's wrong with marketing? There is nothing wrong with marketing. There might be something wrong with the corporation, with the business model, with the revenue streams associated with business. At scale, cracks become chasms. At scale, we are built to suck. Someone once wrote a book on that, up there just above me as well. But now is the time to usher in a new dawn, a new era, an era of marketing 2.0, an evolved marketing, a marketing revolution, a marketing renaissance, but also one that supports what I call community capitalism. The evolution of marketing will support the evolution of business. The evolution of business will support the evolution of capitalism. And now, without further ado, it's time to bring on my guest, Pepsi's Chief Marketing Officer, Todd Kaplan. He oversees marketing for the Pepsi brand in North America, where he's responsible for all creative communications, brand strategy, product innovation, and commercial execution across the entire Pepsi trademark. Since fall of 2018, Kaplan brings an unapologetic culture-forward perspective that has been foundational to re-energizing the brand, bringing it back into the cultural zeitgeist, from reinvigorating the Pepsi Super Bowl halftime show platform with historic performances from J-Lo and Shakira, Dr. Dre, Snoop, Eminem, The Weeknd, and many more, to developing disruptive new products like Nitro Pepsi, to putting out some of the boldest and most talked about brand creative the Pepsi brand has ever seen. Todd has established Pepsi as an industry leader of modern marketing, developing new content models, including multiple television shows, long-form films, trailblazed into Web3, thank God, with one of the first brand NFT projects, and much, much more. Please welcome Mr. Todd Kaplan.
Hello. How's it going? Love that. I've never had an intro like that. That is awesome.
I mean, seriously, how many business talk shows from Wayne's World's basement would ever give you that?
None.
None. It was exactly. It was rhetorical. You know, Todd, we'll move through a few things, but I have to tell you that it's very interesting to me, because there was an era of what they called the rock star CMO. I'm not going to call you the rock star CMO. Exactly, shakes his head. And you know, we saw one of them presenting, who's no longer the CMO of Progressive, who started his own agency, Jeff Charney. But we saw, you know, the Jeffrey Hazlets, the Beth Comstocks of the world. What are your thoughts about the idea of the rock star CMO? And already you're shaking your head saying, that's not me.
Yeah, no, it's not. Listen, it's not about the CMO. It's about the brand. It's about the teams. It's about all of the other things that come with that. And so, you know, the CMO is just the person who's helping drive the agenda and set the vision and kind of get everything moving forward. But yeah, I don't think there's much to that beyond kind of that.
Now, the reason why I didn't call you a CMO is because you've done, I mean, a rock star CMO, you're absolutely a CMO, is because you've done something that I don't see a lot of, and that's leadership. And that's the ability to put yourself out there, to not make it about yourself, but actually to, and I presume you realize this, but you are such a light to the industry, to the people that are doing their best to pioneer, to trailblaze, because we so desperately, oftentimes, all the time, need a little bit of validation. We need to know that there's someone on the other side, on the inside, that is actually developing thought leadership and, more importantly, putting that into practice. And I cannot think of another CMO right now that is doing it with respect to certainly Web3.
Yeah, well, I think it's one of those things too, that as you get to a certain stage in your career, and you know, the idea of teaching and paying it forward, and also just the amount of like passion and pride in this industry we all have, you know, we want marketing as a function in the next 20, 30 plus years to not only still exist, but also be, live up to the potential that the function has. I thought it was interesting in your setup. You talked about the fundamental business functions and what marketing can do as the potential. And I see a lot of, every organization is different. Some places more of a service function versus a business driver versus a revenue thing, cost center. But I think, the rules are changing constantly around what marketing is and isn't. And I think the onus is on us as marketers to help, shepherd in, a new era of where we can go with brand building and how we can do it, in an authentic way that will really resonate. And so I've just been trying to help put my own point of view out there, which everyone internally knows very well, but just continuing to just put it out there.
I'm smiling just because my distracted brain is looking at the two backgrounds we have, and I had the pleasure of having a conversation with Todd where he has maybe one of the greatest home offices in the world. He has maybe as many, if not more, tchotchkes than I do, and I think we might have to do a part 2.
We will definitely have to. I can maybe superimpose, and I'm in the office today, which is I can show you I'm in lovely corporate, PepsiCo, where I return to work, all of that stuff. But listen, I've been my home office when we did some renovations on the house during COVID and stuff like that. And I have tchotchkes coming out my ears. I'm a big Laker fan. I got marketing little things. I got all sorts of little sports memorabilia, other books, tchotchkes. I like a cluttered, interesting, creatively inspiring environment. And also, just as a sidebar, that was the one room of the house my wife said I was allowed to do what I want with. So I put all my crap there. So
look out for interview part 2.
There you go.
And I was actually looking because back in the day of influencer marketing 1.0, when I had my blog and my podcast Jaffe Juice, I received this beautiful little direct piece of collateral. This was at the time of the Pepsi logo rebrand, the Peter Ornell one. Yeah. And I received all these cans and a whole fridge pack and a whole collection. So I was looking around for it, but it was so many years ago. I was going to inconspicuously / conspicuously / not so subtly just adorn the background with some Pepsi memorabilia. So notes to your PR folk, send me tchotchkes and I will show them unabashedly.
Okay. We got lots of tchotchkes, so we will definitely get you some fun stuff, no doubt.
Sharon Cognac is here, and she says she is by the way, our resident storyteller within Alpha Collective and within our little coffee that we run Monday through Friday, 8 to 9, the Collective Cafe. And she said the CMO shines the spotlight on the stories brands need to tell so they amplify the value they offer. Very eloquent.
Yeah, love that.
Thank you for your shining. But now you opened the door to what we call fun facts, where I attempt to embarrass my guests. Showcase the fun side of TCAP. And as I said, yeah, you're like, holy, like now I know why I filled that little form in. But you mentioned, not I, that you are a huge Lakers fan. We actually have photos of you sitting courtside with some of your halftime stars that you've used before. So, you're on the wrong coast though.
Yeah, no, totally. I've never had those seats for sure, but that, yeah, no, absolutely. I'm a huge Laker fan. I grew up in Southern California and grew up with, it was Magic and Kareem and then Shaq and Kobe and the whole deal. And it's a little tough days right now. They finally got their first win, but it's a little rough right now. But I'm a huge West Coast sports fan growing up out there and big Laker fan.
Well, listen, it really always could be worse. You could be a Knicks fan, so
That
or a Yankees fan, unfortunately, these days. So things are not great in the sports land. But you know what? At least they're better than if you were working on Yeezys at the moment. But you're also a big sneakerhead, and so I decided to not pile on the pain. And instead, this is, believe it or not, Todd Kaplan's private sneaker walk-in closet. Not true at all.
Not true. I do. I am a big sneakerhead. I wish I had a closet that looked like that. I do not. But I do have quite a bit of sneakers and have been collecting over the years. And I'm always, rocking whether it's J1s or Dunks or Air Force Ones. There's a lot of I'm very loyal to Nike and a lot of my sneaker shopping and whatnot. But it's definitely a fun thing for sure.
Well, what really has been so interesting is to see there's been a tremendous amount of innovation in the NFT space with respect to sneakers.
Totally.
And so, like, I assume you've purchased one or two of those NFTs.
I've dabbled into the stuff, and I've been keeping a close eye on like Artifact and all the stuff that they're doing with Nike and a lot of the stuff. I think I'm still trying to figure out where I want to kind of play with my own NFT stuff in that space as well. But there's a ton of innovation going on that front for sure. And I think the work that Nike has been doing there has been top notch.
One of the things that that I spoke about years and years ago, probably during maybe my crayon days back 15 years ago, was the 2 A's. One was assets and the other one was access. And I figured that brands had a huge opportunity. It might even have been an insight that I got when I did a lot of work with AB InBev, realizing how many tickets they were sitting on that literally went to waste every year. And so the one thing that brands have always had is incredible assets, whether it's the stars, the sponsorships, the tickets, the events. There hadn't yet been a connection to give people access to those assets. And I think what NFTs are doing now is they're giving us, as Joel Comm said on my show, the NFT, it's a beautiful quote. He said, the NFT is a key that unlocks the magical box.
Yeah, I mean, that's a great way to think about it. That's not the end game. It's usually it's a token is another term I've heard people talk about. It's a way to access different experiences. And I think over time, as more and more people have access to the platforms they're on, as more people have digital wallets, and as more and more people can build the right experiences to connect them the right way, there's going to be a lot more utility down the road for folks to engage with.
Well, Todd, we only have one more slightly embarrassing, badly photoshopped image, but this really does speak to, it's not that bad. It just shows you that you are the, okay, it's bad, and you have a slightly big head. But, as I said, we're going to fire the person that has been doing the bad Photoshop here at Joseph Jaffe's Not Famous Global Studios, which is me. I'm firing myself.
Fair enough.
But you've created over $2 billion in new brands and products over the years. And I would love for you to just talk about in all seriousness now, the importance of, I grew up on Regis McKenna's statement, marketing is everything and everything is marketing. Yeah. And talk a little bit about how, innovation and entrepreneurship is really the lifeblood, the DNA, the oxygen that powers a brand that is, as you put it, what do you call it, culture forward?
Yeah, well, it's one of those things too. And working in a big company, I like to talk about it also as entrepreneurship as a word that gets kicked around a lot. And it's this idea of you have a lot of great ideas, a lot of ways in to connect with consumers. And sometimes they might not be right in front of you as you come onto a team and it says, hey, we have this brand, or do we need to buy this company or do it this way or that way? There might be other ways to approach things. And so I've taken that lens. I have a bit of an entrepreneurial spirit in terms of how I am wired. I started a couple of businesses when I was in college. And even though I work at PepsiCo, every role that I've been in, I treat it like, okay, well, it's almost like its own startup and its own team and how we build the culture and think about it. And so as I've done some roles over the years, when I was most recently leading our water portfolio before I came into this role on the Pepsi team, I started a couple new brands, bubbly sparkling water we created, Life Water we created and launched. I've worked on a variety of other things, small craft soda brands, all the way to other, line extensions and innovations for big brands that we're on. And when you look at it over time, you're like, wow, we have a big company that has a great big go-to-market system and can scale a lot of these ideas very quickly. But there's a lot of, to your point, the art and science that goes into the concept of brand creation, brand building, all the way from the strategy and the consumer insight, all the way to the design and the execution of the product, all the way to the marketing and how you bring it to life. it's really been fun. And it's something that, is one of the great things about PepsiCo is they really embrace the concept of innovation. And if you have the right ideas and you can really get the right folks internally to buy in, you can really make some magic happen, as we're starting to see with some of these brands that are continuing to scale and grow.
Susie Deering, who's the CMO of Ford, gave a keynote at ANA, and she said a quote right at the end, and it really caught my eye. She said, "We're moving from being a hardware company to being a software company." And I was like, holy crap, basically, first of all, there was a short while ago, in fact, maybe the previous time she keynoted, we were hearing that we're hearing that Ford was a technology company, and Toyota had said that they were a mobility company. So you've got, wait a second, I thought you were both car companies, and yet one is a technology company. Oh, wait, they're actually niching down. They're moving from hardware to software. And I just love the fact that beyond the purpose washing, beyond all of this, we suddenly discovered our conscience, our soul, etc. The real progressive companies are reinventing the very category. How do you define Pepsi or PepsiCo, and have you thought about that expansiveness in terms of?
Yeah, I think it's a great push, and I think it's that concept of tapping into like design thinking and all of that, of how you redefine or reimagine what is your competitive set. It's actually part of the challenger mindset, is to really understand, like, who are you really competing against and what business are you in? You've seen businesses like Domino's do it over the years when they got into delivery versus pizza, only, and places like Dunkin' Donuts. We don't just make donuts, and what are we really competing with, and what's and all of that. And I'd say, so listen, while Pepsi clearly is a beverage brand and it's a cola brand specifically, and that's our front and center, as we think about the cultural share of voice, or how we're trying to compete with in terms of a consumer's heart, not just on the product, and all of that. I think you can think a little bit more expansively into where and how consumers are spending their time. I think that's one of the things, as you look to try to become a lifestyle brand and engage with consumers today. You're competing with anything that's basically taking a consumer's time up, as opposed to just the product experience that you have and all of that. And then I think when you put even that lens of Web3 or the future, where a lot of that stuff goes, it opens it up even more as you think about the metaverse, where you can't eat or drink physically inside the metaverse. So maybe if our brand exists in there, we should think more expansively about, is Pepsi a music brand? Is Pepsi something that taps into one of its core equities and brings some of the rest of the forward, versus just being a digital can that people carry around and things like that? So
right,
we're looking at all that.
And a natural build from that is the ability to quench a thirst. Well, what is a thirst? I mean, you can have a thirst for knowledge. You can have a thirst for connection. You can have a thirst for community.
Yep, absolutely.
All right, so you heard it here first. We have we've now invented a new term, SOC, share of culture. But seriously, it's a fantastic way to think about an expansive point of view and philosophy and outlook. And I think if there's ever a brand that's demonstrated their not just ability to invest in and commit to culture, it was fast culture in as Grant McCracken once coined it, when I sat down and interviewed him for a Pepsi project as well. Did I tell you? I told you that I worked for Frank Cooper and a bunch of others. I learned so much in that project in terms of understanding the power of culture, including that story I told you with the sneakers as well. You may not like it, you may not understand it, but you will respect me for that point of view. And I use that now in my teaching at NYU. So I want to jump to a second. This is what Jeff Charney puts up on the screen. And I'm looking at it, and he talks about, I guess it's the things to watch. And so the first thing is we can do a little a checklist, the two of us, because I know where you're playing as well. Number one is creators, right? I think check, right?
Yep.
Me too. I'm a creator. I have my own show. Number two, well, he called it blockchain. Although you've got kind of Bitcoin, cryptocurrency. So again, we'll take that as a check, right? The third one, we can plead the fifth if you like, which is cannabis.
Plead the fifth.
All right. Although it is interesting to see how cannabis is starting to play a role in beverages as well across the board within the category, also within the beer category. So that's interesting. Number 4 is Web3. Hello, check, check.
Yep.
Number 5 is metaverse. Check, check, check.
Yep.
And number 6 is the whole work from home, the whole hybrid, the whole great reimagination, which I assume is check as well.
Yep.
So a couple of things struck me with this, which is, why did he separate? Not that he's the all-knowing, maven and expert, but why do you think he separated blockchain, Web3, and metaverse? Was that intentional? Was it maybe just because he doesn't know enough? Or I don't mean it in because I had an interesting take on it, but I want to hear yours first.
Yeah, I think it's well, first I think the intent of the slide, again, I didn't see the talking, but I know Jeff, and I know it's basically, which I share a similar thought, is it's the best time to be a marketer and the worst time to be a marketer, because there's so many new channels and all these new places to explore and check out, but it's also overwhelming for a lot of folks in terms of where and how you can participate in all of that. I think, separating some of these things out, I think the most interesting part of, as people say, Web3 is the stuff that's under the hood, which is really the blockchain technology of it all. And that's going to be the real enablers. Right now, not the sexiest or the flashiest thing where people say, look, here's the metaverse and here's this NFTs we can offer. I think at the end of the day, it really comes down to the fundamental tools of the decentralized web, how we can evoke what that means for your consumer experience, for community building, for monetization, for a lot of other things in the future that I think a lot of people are getting caught up in. Oh, cryptocurrency, or there's a building sandbox and the metaverse over here, and that's all going to take 50,000 other forms as it evolves over the next years. The foundational tools underneath are what the marketers need to really understand to really try to think differently.
And another thing that I picked up also from in a different presentation is this essence of a false binary choice, that we have to choose between centralization and decentralization. We have to choose between analog and digital. We have to choose between Web 2 and Web 3. And of course, that is not the case. It's
Correct.
not or it's and, right?
That's right. That's right.
So I wanted to show that, and it's almost like working backwards, because you are developing your own manifesto, if you will, the future of marketing, the modern marketing concept. I obviously teed it up a softball, if you will, by looking at the what's wrong with marketing today, come sound off and sign the wall. And I guess my question to you would be, what's wrong with marketing today? Come sound off and sign the wall. But also how you would respond to the soliloquy, which is, hey, there's nothing wrong with marketing. Maybe there's something wrong with marketers or something wrong with business.
Yeah, I think that's spot on. It's not about, there's a lot of people who aren't in marketing who view like, oh, these advertisers and marketers are coming at me and putting pre-roll in front of me and buying ads on all these places and they're popping up on my phone. Well, frankly, that is what is wrong in my mind with marketing and the marketers that are, really pushing and enabling and a lot of that stuff. What it really comes down to is, if you take 20 steps back and you think of this as a time continuum, if I'm going to be like now the history teacher here for a little bit, but say if back in the day, marketing started off as a one-to-one kind of thing, word of mouth, hey, I have a new product service, go check out this restaurant, whatever. You then got scaled on television, where it was, okay, now a brand could talk en masse to a very static audience and say, here's our benefit, here's our product. And that became the way of Mad Men and all that stuff when the industry really started to become more of a real business and an industry. It then shifted again as you get into the invention of the internet, where there's now a two-way dialogue with consumers, where you can put out a message, they can now reach back out to you, you can engage with each other literally through a laptop, a desktop experience. And then as you look now at mobile, now it's kind of changed exponentially, because now the context of where and how the consumer is receiving the message really matters a lot. because if I'm watching something on the subway while I'm commuting to work, if I'm literally highly engaged, if I'm just flipping through it while I'm doing another task, other kind of things, it changes. And what's happened over that amount of time as well is these big consumer trends where consumers are bombarded with messages and they have more choices at their disposal than ever before. The irony of you have every, from Netflix, Hulu, Disney Plus, you name it, you have endless choices on TV, yet there's nothing to watch. You have endless songs on your phone, yet you don't know what the hell to put on. So you just let somebody else randomly curate a playlist and things like that. And there's an innate tipping point of human behavior where you can only digest so much and you can only process so much. And so there's now all these new places and platforms through my phone, through my connective devices, all that stuff where I'm going to spend my time as a consumer. Do I, as a marketer, want to be the person who's interrupting them from those experiences and saying, hey, look at me, buy my thing, click on my ad, here's what I can offer you, when the person's going to get annoyed and say, skip, next, no thank, or whatever? Or should you rather be where they are and have them find you? So creating unique content and experiences that are these, what I'd call opt-in brand experiences, is really, I think, the future of marketing. That obviously you need a healthy balance of finding them, but it's the old school mentality of I'm targeting these consumers and I'm going to find them and throw little darts of messages at them and find them with my message does not work anymore because consumers will not process it. Think of yourself and where you spend your time on a daily basis. How much of your own time do you spend consuming paid media versus text messages, reading articles and earned media, seeing streaming content, doing other things? And when you see those paid messages, you hit skip or you are engaged in some other thing and not really paying attention. So yet the irony is, back to what's wrong with the marketers, the marketing industry spends 90% of its time building creative and media planning on that paid ecosystem because that's measurable and where the content is played today. And so we've done a lot with our team to really focus on driving earned media, social conversation, building new models like creating, long form content, short form content, music videos, NFT project, a lot other ways for people to engage with your brand that is not just check this out, look at this ad. Of course, we have a healthy balance to keep the lights on and make sure we're being smart throughout. But I think that's where the future's going for sure.
I mean, that's warrants. You normally would get the air horn, but you've had the air horn, so now you get the applause. Sharon says, yes, Todd, it's always been driven by stories. The ability to see ourselves in the narrative is the ultimate opt-in. And quite frankly, so is the NFT. I have to tell you, I love this so much. I've decided to make Pepsi the sponsor of today's episode for an undisclosed sum of products.
Amazing.
So you're now, I actually just downloaded that while you were talking. So this, I feel like sometimes I'm a one-man band, with the cymbals and the harmonica and,
good.
It's crazy. It's crazy. The voices in my head are telling me to keep going. Don't stop now. But yeah, I mean, you said so much in that in terms of like recognizing where the future lies. And I have to ask this question because it is the billion-dollar question, which is the future of marketing, is the future of talent, is the future of business community? What role does community play in all of this, in this ecosystem that is unlocked with connection, with collaboration?
Yeah. I think that's really exactly where the future lies, is this idea of community building. If you were to go back to put your psychologist hat on brand building and the role that brands play, or I call it the tattoo test on my team. If someone tattoos a brand on their body, it's not just because they love the product, it has a deeper emotional meaning and a connection. And there's a shared affinity, no different than somebody, a bunch of New York Jets fans sharing in the misery of what it is to be a Jets fan, or a bunch of people of whatever the sports team, it's a way of tribalism and connectivity, right? And so as you think of the future of brand building for affinity-based brands, how are these communities going to be built and connected over, through all these tools, whether it's through online tools, Web3, all the other things, and how do you continue to unlock that to continue to build your brand? It's not just about it's back to even the targeting thing. It's not just about demographics. It's about deeper psychographics, where having a point of view for your brand and really standing for something, and people who identify with that. It's almost the Simon Sinek 101 golden circle kind of stuff that really people can connect to, that I think is really where the future of this is going. And there's a lot in the industry, frankly, that needs to change, I think, to get us there. Given right now we're so focused on this old school model, the agencies and client dynamic, there's so much to unpack.
Oh my God, there is so much to unpack. I've been talking about that every Monday through Friday we do a virtual coffee in what we call the Collective Cafe, that is free for anyone, everyone, all the time, for the rest of time. Discord.gg/Alpha Collective. And the reason why I mentioned that is every Thursday now we're doing a live read of my very first book, Life After the 30-Second Thought. And it's wild, Todd, to go back to a book that was written in 18 years ago and see what is the same, what has changed, what has come true, what hasn't come true. You're going to see in a circuitous way why I'm showing all of this to you, because I've written a new book called Forever Change. This is the cover of the book, created by NFT designer Ali Sabet. And what makes the book unique is that readers will get royalties. So for the very first time, we're actually demonstrating how customers should own the brand, quite literally and figuratively. Now, I show this to you for a bunch of reasons. One is because I have particular joy on telling my guests what their next book is going to be called. And now I've come up with two for you. So please look out wherever books are sold for Todd Kaplan's next two books. The first will be called 20 Steps Back. I can spot the winners, right? Which is a great way, the zooming out and the understanding you have to sometimes look backwards in order to move forward. Even Dan Pink's book Regret says that. But also, forget about Kevin Roberts and love marks. Todd Kaplan's new book is called The Tattoo Test. Are you prepared to put that Pepsi logo on your left butt cheek? If so, please contact him via Twitter, DM, or LinkedIn. But yeah, I mean, it's so true. It's so true, everything you say. So I had to show that to you. And then I had to kind of go to Bez's question. And he said, Todd Kaplan, what is your take on who owns a brand, the organization or the consumer of the brand?
I think it's a little bit of both. And that is kind of, as you look at kind of the future of where it is, I think the organization owns the creation of the product, the service, the facilitation of where and how that brand shows up, the crafting of that brand idea, the articulation of how it shows up in creative executions and all of that. But you also want, you want the consumers to feel connected to it. And you want to really deepen that level of relationship and partnership that you have. You look at some of these iconic brands, that back to the tattoo test we were just talking about, you think of like Harley Davidson, right? Clearly the consumers aren't crafting the bikes and making them, and the engines and the craftsmanship, which makes them so wonderful. But there is such a special degree of ownership within that community with the jackets, the tattoos, and all of that, that I think is, I think it's a great way to connect. And they, I'm sure if somebody, makes a beautiful jacket, if they use the wrong logo mark or something, I'm pretty sure they're not reaching out to them saying, hey, take that down, stop that. They're embracing the fact that these people are loving their brand and really engaging with it more deeply.
I think that's a perfect response. And you also mentioned, these are such softballs for me. You mentioned philosophy. Yeah. And because it is Thursday, we have a resident philosopher, one of my, as we describe him, he's a previous guest on the show and he won't go away now. And so we made him our philosopher, and he sends in a vignette every Thursday. This one is called, and it will get into our conversation afterwards, which is, what does it take to be a modern marketer and to institute modern marketing? And this one is called Courage and Marketing.
Hi, I'm Tom Morris. Joseph told me the show today is on modern marketing, and that his seated soliloquy would be about courage. Now, to some people, that would be an odd combination, right? But as a philosopher, I understand. Good marketers need confidence. Great marketers need courage. Now, what's the difference? Confidence is an attitude of positive expectation for good results, right? The confident person is a believer. Courage is something different. It's a commitment of the will. It's a commitment to what's right rather than what's easy, to what's needed rather than to what's safe. Confidence shines in difficulty. Courage stands out in danger or situations of serious risk. They can both guide our emotions. They can often make powerful partners. They're what military people call force multipliers, and each can be cultivated. Now, there are times when confidence is called for, but there's no danger. So courage is not really needed. And there are situations where a courageous person has a very low confidence that his actions will result in a desired effect, but still has to do those things. So these two qualities can come apart, but they're powerfully joined together in most circumstances. Now, how does this relate to marketing? Well, marketing is about awareness, attraction, persuasion, and Aristotle had a lot to say about that. Aristotle said that situations of persuasion call for three things: logos, pathos, and ethos. Logos, logic, information, truth; pathos, passion, emotion, feeling; and ethos, from which we get ethics, which meant in ancient Greek, character. So truth, emotion, and character. If we present the truth in a powerful way, if we engage people's emotions and display good character while doing so, we can be very persuasive. Now, character, Aristotle said, is composed of all sorts of virtues or positive attributes, like honesty and like courage. He even thought that courage is the most important of the virtues because he said without it, you won't exercise any of the others in situations of difficulty or danger. Courage is vital to everything we do, whether we're marketing a product or a process or ourselves, whether we're just trying to make the world a better place, which marketing ought to be trying to do in any case, right? Aristotle said, cultivate courage. Now, you cultivate confidence and courage in the little things, you'll be better able to get them right in the big things. I hope you think about this some more, and I hope it helps you to become both more confident and more courageous. Happy philosophy.
Love that.
So let's talk a little bit about courage, because, you know, one of the things that just struck me, and I heard it so many times that it actually kind of blew my mind, even in Bob Leodice's opening remarks, is you know, in big screens, right, in big writing on the screen, courage. And then I heard somebody else talk about it, and I was like, you know what, I've never heard the words bravery and courage associated with marketing and modern day marketers. How do you display courage, Todd, especially in the wake of, you know, analysis paralysis, needing to produce ROI, short-termitis, which I describe as a CTD, which is a corporate transmitted disease, and it's chronic. Even cream will just keep it at bay, but it will never take it away.
Yeah.
How do you display courage, and how do you get other people to be courageous?
I think it's a great question, and I think it's kind of what I was saying earlier, that it's too easy right now, because everything's so difficult outside of the marketing landscape. The cultural context is always changing. The tools, the platforms, the consumer needs are changing. It's very hard to be a marketer right now, and so it's easy for a lot of people to sit back and just kind of say, well, we're going to build a TV spot. We're going to do our ROI testing here. We're going to do this kind of lower funnel stuff to help click-throughs hit, like the tried and true stuff of the past. That's easy to do. That doesn't cause friction in the organization because it's already accepted and all of that. But what that also won't do is really step change your business performance, step change your brand, you know, connection with consumers, a lot of the things that you're looking to do. And so what takes courage is to say, I'm going to get off the ride, and we're going to build our own ride right now. And we're going to do it like this. And at a lot of organizations, you got to partner with different stakeholders to get them bought in and show the return and show that it's worth the spend, and work with the agencies, build the capability on your team. There's a lot of layers if you want to pull off something more aspirational and do it. But that's the idea of courage as I see it in marketing, is marketers need to understand that they they are the key to the consumer within their organization, because no other function is going to be thinking consumer first other than the marketers. And the marketers' onus to the organization is to inspire and be the muse to help drive that business forward with right insights, with the right creative thinking, with the right campaigns and creative, the right innovation and product development, all the other elements where it can touch to really inspire all the functions to move forward. And that's courageous, because it a lot of times will run into barriers. And a philosophy I always talk about with my team is this idea of taking no as a request for more information, because we get told no all the time in our building between our lawyers, our supply chain, our R&D team. It's easy for a big company to want to continue to do the status quo because it's the status quo, which means it's working. It's harder to take a step forward to say, hey, I see around the corner, or hey, this isn't working as hard as it could be, and to get the right people aligned and to execute it in that way. That's where the courage really stems from.
What I really like about that insight is that, we typically see a no from a corporate brand, from someone on the outside looking in. And what we don't realize and what we don't recognize, and actually what we don't give credit for, is the fact that there is a cascade of no's. And as you say, there is corporate affairs and legal affairs and now in the whole Web3 space, and we've got to figure out. I mean, there was the Matthews effect, right, which applies to music and the rich get richer, but now there's a Howey test as well, and it's like, how many tests? Why are we being tested as well? And so I think it's a great insight. Maybe this is your third book, which is the idea of the dominoes effect, because there is a domino of no's. And when you actually empathize with a brand and a brand marketer who is being now lumped with even more on their plate, I think there's rather just request for more information is a much better response in terms of the no means maybe not yet or not now.
Well, and a lot of times it's always stemming from a good place. Someone has their functional hat on and they're trying to protect the enterprise, or they don't fully understand, and it's not even around, there's new platforms like, TikTok coming in, and should we be on there or not? It could even just evolve to creative. If you think back to any piece of marketing creative that's moved you or has been, had enough creative tension built in, it's usually there's something that you could see that's a little controversial to get over the finish line, or how they executed it, or what platform they really did to push forward. You just look at the list of Cannes winners from the past year and look at every piece of work and go back to say someone was in a boardroom fighting for that. And somebody probably said, you know what, Nike's I don't want to work with Colin Kaepernick. It's very risky right now. Or somebody says, hey, getting into this new platform of Web3, it's unproven. I don't know about that. Or someone else says getting into, there's a trillion examples. We've had, hey, we might get a letter from a legal team and get sued, or a cease and desist, or whatever it is. And a lot of that takes courage, and it takes, at the end of the day, businesses aren't things without the people inside of them, and the people inside of them, and the marketers specifically, should be the role to really drive that creative thinking, drive the voice of the consumer, and ideally help businesses transform, as well as just brands deepen their connection with the consumers.
I want to make sure that that we've spoken about this beautiful continuum, right? The future of marketing, the modern marketing concept, where marketing is heading. We've spoken about the trends. We've spoken about kind of what needs to change in the industry. We've spoken about courage. I always try and find a quote for my guest, and this is the quote that I found for you. The point of human evolution is adapting to circumstance, not letting go of the old, but adapting it is necessary. And I think that really just sums up, this is from Sonali Bendre, that talks about the idea that it's not about out with the old, in with the new, but building the bridge and figuring out what this transition or transformation looks like. The best of the old with the best of the new.
Yeah, I think it's a great quote. And, it's the first time I'm seeing it, but it makes a ton of sense, and is really all about this idea of iterating and evolving and being, you know, agile as a marketer too. You think of even just the last, you know, couple of years with the pandemic, with, you know, social justice, with all the things going on externally, back to that idea of context mattering more to marketers now. Even with the tightest brief, the best strategy, the best brand perspective, the best creative agencies, whatever it is you're doing, as you start that process to when you end, the creative world around you is going to change. The cultural context is going to change. So you need to be agile, willing to adapt, to flex and move through it. And so as you look at that in the macro level of just new platforms emerging, new ways consumers are engaging, you have to be, you know, you can't just approach life with the blinders on. You have to look at all those elements as you move forward to keep your brand modern.
Let's spend the last few minutes of the show just talking about Web3, because you really have been an advocate, and you've been, you know, so articulate about Pepsi's position, about your position, how you've lent into it. It may not seem courageous to you, and it may not be, because risk is relative, right? And I was thinking the opposite of courage is cowardice. That might be my new nickname for, like, look at marketers, saying by not actually exploring what is best for your brand, by the way, because if you are consumer focused and consumer first, you ought to be where your consumer is. But putting that aside for a second, you know, two questions. One is, what made you lean into Web3? How do you define Web3? And it's actually three questions. And where do you see it heading? Because in a year's time, and I just want you to kind of end with this idea of what, it's a tough question. It might be a trick question. It's A&A Masters of Marketing 2023. Is it still just lip service and superficiality? Is the agenda dominated with Web3? So kind of, let's go back to this idea. What made you decide? What made you lean in?
Yeah. So what made me lean in is I'm always a very just curious person and love just kind of geeking out and checking out new things. And so and this is a very deep, dark rabbit hole once you go down it, as anyone who's gone into the Web3 space knows, especially at this phase where it's not a great consumer experience and you got to figure out and learn and I'm a big learning by doing. So when TikTok comes out, you're, you know, up there scrolling through, looking and engaging with other new platforms, all that stuff. So same thing when Web3, all this stuff started coming about, you know, and I'm friendly with Gary Vaynerchuk, with a number of other folks who have been in the space, and then, hey, you got to check it out. So I started looking and doing my own research, but rather than just reading some articles, I said, okay, let me just go through the motions. And as I started getting into it, I started getting really interested in certain things. I started not liking other things and formulating my own viewpoint as we're going through that. And, you know, as in terms of where it's going, you know, I think it's interesting. I think one of the big misnomers people have is people have seen the kind of the rise of all this, and then kind of now it's what they're calling like crypto winter and all that kind of stuff is, I think a lot of people are missing the forest for the trees on some of these things, where they're looking at it as, oh my God, see, I told you it was a fad, all these overvalued collectibles and what I would equate to like Beanie Babies or any of these things that are legitimate fads. Like, the reality is, yes, it was overvalued. There was going to be a bloom splat, no different than we saw with the advent of Web 2. If you remember pets.com on the Super Bowl and all these kind of websites and all that kind of stuff. But what happens in the adoption curve is it goes, a bubble bursts, goes down, and then now is where the hard yards, when nobody's looking, when the real exciting stuff, I think, gets to happen, when the real innovation that simplifies some of the models, when all those kind of things happen, so that as it starts to kind of become more mainstream, people don't realize that it's going to be a part of their day-to-day life as it really is. And so it's, I think over time, as you get to 2023, whether it's going to be in 23 or 24, 25, you know, where and how this continues to kind of go. I don't think it's going anywhere. I think it's just a matter of the adoption curve. You look at things like QR codes that really had a moment during the pandemic, but guess what? They were around for 10, 15 years prior to that, and no one was using them. And now there's a need of finding the menu without touching it, and all the, you know, entering into sweepstakes and stuff. And now people know how to use it on their phone pretty easily, even though it's been around for a while. You know, it's that theory of, you know, the future, I forget the quote, it's something around the future isn't new, it's just not evenly distributed. It's already around us right now. And I think it's the same thing as all the stuff is there. It's just a matter of when it's going to tip into adding utility into your life to become more mainstream, which takes time, takes innovation, takes people to solve some of the headache problems within it. And that's actually a role I think brands play, is really helping to tip that curve and be part of that adoption as well.
I think it could be Nicholas Negroponte, the future, or it's it's I'll find it, but the future is,
the future's all around us. It's not evenly distributed.
The future's like already here. It's just not evenly distributed. But so much of it is timing. And I actually remember Gail Troberman, who at the start of the conference actually said, the question is not if, the question is when. All of this is going to happen. The question is when. And ultimately, it's a great way to end today, which is, if you David Ogilvy once said, do not insult your consumer. She is your wife, right? he may have updated it now in today's times, but still the idea was your consumer will never lead you astray. So the question is not if, it's when. And I think what a great way to end today, by being able to say, do not be fooled by the lull. This is like the eye of the storm. Now is the time to invest forward. I have to say, going back to that elevator pitch, the idea of the best and the brightest, that is Todd Kaplan. The learning by doing is the only way. You'll never read about the stuff in a book or see it on a show, not even mine. You have to roll up your sleeves and get your hands dirty. So I leave you with William Gibson, Sharon said. Exactly. That's what I said. Nicholas Negroponte, William Gibson. That's exactly what I said, 2003. Now, we have smoke, we have mirrors, we have Photoshop. You didn't get to see Todd Kaplan's Pepsi tattoo that he has on his neck tat. This is what I was trying to desperately do during Tom. I know. Wow. You're like, Joe, you've sunk.
Well, thank you for putting it there and not in some other place, but yes, that looks great. I can't see it right now, but it
exactly. So you've been giving us your other side. I won't say, because the good side has the tattoo. But fun fact: Chuck Norris has a Pepsi tattoo on the left buck cheek. Let's just say buck cheek. It'll be better. Sure. And this is what Chuck Norris had to say about you, Todd Kaplan.
You are Chuck Norris approved.
And we will be back next week. Todd, thank you for coming in, and for sharing, because at the end of the day, this openness, this generosity, this kindness, it is appreciated by more people than you will ever know.
Oh, well, I appreciate that. And thank you so much for having me on. It was a lot of fun.
And come back again soon with a background.
Yes, from the home office. We'll have to run it back. We can keep at it.
Basically, when we do that, I'll make sure that I have a white background. Just
100%.
We'll
of course.
Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.
Thank you for watching the show about hope, positivity, optimism, and if there's time left over, a little bit of marketing with your host, multiple author, and global keynote speaker, Joseph Jaffe. If you like the show, tell a friend or two. Please subscribe to the show. And if you want to get inside news, previews of upcoming guests, and much more, visit josephjaffe.com/subscribe to sign up for the show's newsletter.
And despite the best ministrations of your wife, you still look ugly.